My goal was fairly straightforward, to build a simple shockwave effect using shader graph in URP. There was just one problem. Anytime I tried to create even the simplest transparent shader, it did not render correctly in the game view. Why? Does URP not support transparent shaders like this? Of course it does. I just needed to learn something very crucial about how transparent shaders like this work. Let me show you. Take this shader graph shader here. It samples the pixels from the camera's opaque texture, in other words, what the camera sees after all opaque objects have been rendered, and draws them onto the fragment's color output to create a transparency effect. I know that's quite a mouthful. It's basically the same as putting a big screen somewhere and feeding it the camera feed of what's behind it to create the illusion that it's invisible. Let's walk through the shader step by step real quick. First, we have the screen position node. This is used to obtain the coordinates of the current pixel on the screen. The output of this is fed into the scene color node. The scene color node is the node that samples the camera's opaque texture. In other words, this samples what the camera sees after all non-transparent objects have been rendered. To make the shader a bit easier to see and to verify that it is actually working, we can multiply the scene color with a color of our choosing here. This will make the object we apply the shader to look like colored glass. We also have to make sure that the surface type of the shader is set to transparent, otherwise rendering the shader will not work. Now, in order for this to work in URP, we have to actually enable the setting that allows a camera's opaque texture to be sampled in shader graph. We can also make sure that this setting is enabled for the camera itself. With all this said and done, we should be able to create a material from this shader, apply it to an object, and see that the object is transparent in our scene and game view. Okay, scene view check, the object is see-through. Remember, it's green because we multiplied the scene color with a color so that we could see something. In this case, the color we mixed in was, well, green. Okay, now let's check the game view. Uh-oh, what's going on here? Why is it not transparent? Let's double check our settings again to be sure. Scene color node and shader graph, check. Surface type set to transparent, check. Opaque texture enabled for a render, check. Opaque texture enabled for a camera, check. What is going on? Why is the object not transparent in the game view? Okay, there's one thing I did not tell you. I'm using not just a single camera, but stacking multiple camera overlays. The object with our shader's material is rendered by this overlay camera here. The environment in the background that should be seen through the transparent object is rendered by this camera overlay here. And overlay cameras have no setting to enable the sampling of their opaque texture in URP. If we have the environment be rendered not by an overlay camera, but by the regular main camera that the overlays are stacked on top of, then it will be visible through our transparent object, even if the transparent object itself is rendered by an overlay. This is because, again, the overlay cameras do not allow you to sample their opaque texture. That means anything they render cannot be used by any shader and drawn onto another object to create a transparency effect. The base camera, however, does allow you to sample the opaque objects it sees. Therefore, any shaders can draw what that camera sees onto other objects. This fundamental understanding of what a camera's opaque texture is and how shaders use it to create a transparency effect was a core concept I learned that helped me understand why my shader wasn't rendering correctly in the game view. I hope you enjoyed this little dive into how transparency effects through shader graph and URP work and what limitations you can run into specifically when working with overlay cameras. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you liked the video, and see you next time.